bring the whole gun to the left.
I like how I just hit the camera accidentally by my pocket on the ground. Misha here, and I have sold a gun that I never thought I would. That had a lot of personal significance to me. It was one of the earliest guns that Jay and I did on the channel, and maybe the first kind of unique exclusive gun we ever did, you know, that wasn't just, you know, run-of-the-mill. And kind of started the path for this channel on doing the stuff that no one else does. The weird, the obscure, the overly analytical. Sure, you know, people ask in the comment sections to review this and that new gun. I don't know what I can give to that. The bigger, better places with better production have already said all there is to say. What can I do? But it's guns like these that I've kind of latched onto from boutique manufacturers, builders, customizers. And that's actually how I first met Dave, JDI Sand Imports, and got involved in importing Swiss SIGs. This is not a straight up import, although it's almost all an import. This is my Swiss SIG AM57 from Honey Creek Industries, HCI. And we did a video 13 years ago because this was one of the earliest full functioning receivers prototypes that Steve over there did. And I've had it ever since. Why am I selling it? What's happened? Something wrong with it? Have I fallen out of love with it? Have I fallen on economic hard times? Well, we're going to talk about it. Thought I would also tell you some kind of weird little quirks of this gun. Because, yeah, just looking at it, you know there are some. If you have never handled one, which, you know, most people haven't. Because Honey Creek never really put these into production. He did make more than this one. He made a few. But, well, engineers are an interesting breed. We'll get there. And as always, I'd like to help support the channel. Check out Patreon and all that fun stuff. Let's slow things down. Yeah, these are so fun. I'll let you know when you're empty. Future Misha here, at least for a little bit, and I'll be cutting in from the cabin with Miss Peanut. The Swiss K31, often called the Schmidt-Rubin. It is in spirit, but in actuality, it is not. Recently did a full-length video looking at this gun. It is classed as a short rifle, not a carbine. And it replaced the 9611, 1911 long infantry rifles, and K11 carbine. Straight pull system, detachable 6-shot mag with last round on empty hold open. Fantastic smooth action and very nice triggers on these for what they are. And they fired the same GP11 cartridge, which is usually about a 174 grain projectile. This is the original box. And the ammo you'll see throughout this video is actually some stuff that a friend, Moose and Squirrel, gave me years ago, and it was really to resell it or do whatever, and I kept it for a needful time. I love the packaging they put these in with this little, you know, tear strip. It really reminds me of like the European cigarette packages you used to see. Little cardboard flip top. Definitely not to be, you know, reused, resealed. Hey, there you go. This one holds 10 cartridges, which is a little funny. But because a lot of what they do is in elements of 6, not 5. This is the cartridge, 7.5 by 55, a little bit longer than NATO, a little bit thinner. And what I always thought was really neat about the military ammo, there's a ring of wax here, which serves as lubrication. Very thoughtful. And this ammo is at least nominally match grade. So it's pretty fun. And I can't recall if it was J-Ro's father, call him Doc, that first introduced me to the 7.5 cartridge 25 years ago, and the Swiss K31. But it very, very well might have been. Should also point out that the only markings on these, you got your Swiss crest and then your serial number, and that's about it, guys, because these were never intended for export. They made large numbers for the Swiss military, really beginning in earnest in 1933 and running through the 1950s. And speaking of J-Ro, let J-Ro try the K31.
So I'm informed that this is actually not a Schmidt-Rubin, that it is a K31, yeah?
Yeah.
But I mean, just looking at you can't look at this bolt, like all the bolt handle here, and not think Schmidt-Rubin.
Well, it's just a highly refined version. It's like half the length of the actual Schmidt-Rubin bolt. The Schmidt-Rubin bolt is huge.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
But exact same handling.
I have pistols that weigh less than just the bolt out of an actual Schmidt-Rubin.
Feels just like a Schmidt-Rubin going in. Feels like a Schmidt-Rubin coming back, too. Oh, that's got some ass behind it. This is not the most comfortable gun I've shot today, but it is effective.
To be fair, it's the first bolt action you've shot today.
Well, that's very true. If we had an entire bolt action day, I might have a different opinion about it, but a beautiful piece of hardware, man.
Yeah, and you can operate it quickly, and also you can operate it, again, from behind cover, small areas. You don't have to have, like, that upturning motion. It's all very flat, horizontal, everything about it.
Yeah, I'm just always so impressed with the machine work.
Yep. I need to get him out more with bolt actions. Later on that day, he told me what he was doing was kind of centering it on his collarbone up high and bending in versus getting it down in the pocket. Yeah, this is a full power rifle. I don't think the recoil's bad at all, but steel butt plate, wood stock, somewhat short, a lot of fun. With that though, back to the AM57, STGW57. Well, it's an interesting thing. As expensive as these are thought of today, and they are, SIG and Switzerland actually set out to design something cheaper to mass produce than previous bolt actions, but then they got where they wanted it all. It needed to be long range, it needed to be accurate. Basically, it needed to be a multi-role rifle, and that actually explains kind of the features of this guy. Obviously, primary role, infantry battle rifle. But the Swiss love accuracy, all that good stuff. Fold down your sights. Now this one doesn't have the scope mounts on it. That was a decision I made when putting it together. But a lot do, and so it was meant to be a DMR, almost a sniper rifle, if called upon. And that was another thing. They had to fire the same 7.5 GP11 cartridge. So if you think 308 is chunky, you just wait. And it fed from the L25, the light machine gun mags. They're 24 shot. Even the mags are crazy because they're an aluminum alloy, but this is machined as a single piece. It's not It's not seamed together as such. They're very light. They're very good mags. No last round hold open. Kind of a rock and lock style. And you might think, well, 24 shots, 24 plus 1 if you really want. That's a lot for a 7.5 battle rifle. Definitely way too much for a sniper. Now, they did have a compact mag if you wanted to launch grenades. That's because another role this was meant to be called upon was a saw gunner in LMG. So for that, you actually unhook your sling from your shroud. Got our bipod here. And it has a little notch thing here. See? Right there. So that you can release it from its rear position. Slide it up your shroud. And there's another spring-loaded catch up here where it can lock in place. Clicks in. And this is meant to be used as more of a fixed defensive suppressive firepower situation, you see? So 3 distinct roles. It also needed to be super accurate, long range. It also needed to be refurbishable. The bolt, the receiver, the trunnions, the barrel had to have a high round count and still be Swiss grade accuracy, which is a whole other level of accuracy. So this is one of the costs never actually achieved what it was set out to do. But they did kind of get the rifle they wanted, and service proved that maintenance was pretty low. One of the famous features is the locking mortises for the rollers on the bolt. Like on an HK or a SETME, if this wears out, you can replace rollers, but that's all you can do. These here, you got little, C-clips. Just pop them out and put new ones in. That was the whole notion, is the few parts that they knew would wear, just replace them, replace the rollers, what have you. They developed it throughout the 50s. Obviously adopted it in 57 is the Sturmgewehr STGW57. That was a select fire version. And this is built from a SG57 parts kit. Everything's Swiss, the barrel, the trunnions, the furniture, obviously. The only thing it isn't is the Honey Creek receiver stamping here with the correct seams. This is how they did it. And he not only studied the couple of originals that he has in his collection, he actually obtained some documentation, some prints, and just some advice from folks over in Switzerland and elsewhere about how to do it right. And that's the shame. He put 110% effort into this receiver. He even got ATF approval. Now, this is not an imported receiver, so technically he didn't have to even do that, but he did. He got it approved as a semi-automatic, the gun known as AM57. What happened? Moving our pod back down. You ever over-prepare for a test at school? Or overdo it for a project at work? Oh, that's what Honey Creek did. He got too much in the weeds about the fine details. He got it 99% absolutely perfection and spent way more time than would have been warranted trying to get that last 1 or 2 percentage. And then on top of that, he worried that other folks in America would beat him to the punch and do their own semi-autos. And I tried to tell him that, look, there are enough kits out there. There's room in the market for 2 or even 3 people doing these, and yours is the best. I saw the other receivers, especially the 80%ers. His was best. They weren't bad. I would have probably used one of those. But, yeah. But he got in his own head. And what it is, he is an amazing engineer, an amazing gunsmith, a great person, but not a great businessman. Luckily, his wife is, but you know, you gotta go. We got it there. It's good enough. I mean, it would be nice if more companies had his attitude of not bringing something to market until it was ready. The thing is, I've had this for 13 years. It runs fine. It's ready. And the small areas that it's not 100% perfect, like this kind of sticks out a little bit. It should be perfectly flush. It's got a little bit of that drove him crazy. I'm like, it's not a big deal. That's fixable. We can tweak that. No big thing. It runs well. It's accurate. He did some in 308. This one's, of course, in 7.5. The kits were available. What's going on? Back to me. Now, this is definitely an interesting gun. It's iconic. I think it's neat as hell. There's nothing else like it. It's also over 12 pounds unloaded and well over 13 fully loaded with this full house mag. Beefy barrel, beefy shroud. It's amazing how just tightly fitted everything is. It's that wonderful level of quality where everything can be moved by hand, but nothing is loose and wiggly, and that shows precision, tolerances, and machining. We also see it with SIG's P210, the P49. But yeah, it's all Swiss, except for the US stuff up here, and of course some of the semi-automatic stuff in here. He even flipped around on the Swiss military guns. When soldiers retire out, they can buy their guns, and if they take it home, they have to be converted into semi-automatic only. This is not the same thing as a PE57. Those are factory-built semi-autos, but they would convert them, and he even did that. There's a little block down here in the lower. They flip over to show the conversion was done. Again, super attention to detail right there. But this gun is not only up for sale, it's actually already sold. I don't like doing videos where it looks like I'm trying to use the video to market a gun. So I only do things when, yeah, the time's over. And this has been sold, it's been paid for, and I'm about to ship it out to the new owner. He's getting a couple of extra mags too. Hope he really likes it. It's certainly a unique gun. I technically did put this together. I had help, but, you know, set together and people showed me how to do it. They're actually surprisingly simple to at least put the components together. But I wanted to do one kind of final farewell with a gun that's been with me a long time. You ever have a gun like that? Because once it goes in its box, I will never see it again. So why am I doing this? All right, let's put the first few shots through. Loaded it pretty light, using one of the early pattern mags. No hold open, but she worked. Yeah, I did a thing. Eventually. And it took months, years to make it happen. Trying to get my bipod on there. So it can sit on its own. This is not the same rifle as you've probably already noticed. For one, it does have the Kern mount for the optic there, and the name and number and all that good stuff on both the lower trigger pack and receiver. Yep, it is a Swiss SIG PE57. This is an import, a purpose-built example as a semi-automatic and civilian legal. And I finally found one and eventually got it here. And there's definitely a story behind that. The original Select Fire was STGW57, the STGW57, export name SG510, was Select Fire and was adopted in late 1957. Now, the original version made by Amsler was pretty much ready to go in 1955, the AM55. That's where the name AM57 comes from in the HCI, cinematic receiver. The AM55 was the original, but they would develop it into this. And this was Switzerland wanting either a select fire or self-loading gun. They had messed with prior guns like the the SK46 and the AK53. Very unique designs, especially the AK53. It actually makes this one look slightly conventional, perhaps. But yeah, this was the standard issue gun, and it would actually remain so until the 1990s, when finally the STGW90, the SIG SG550, was ready to go. But those were all select fire. And you know, in America, once a machine gun, always a machine gun. That's been the rule of the land since the 1960s. In Switzerland, service members, reservists, can purchase their weapon with a small administrative fee, and it effectively goes from being a STGW57 to a PE57. And they do a few modified changes in here, flip the plate around, there you go. That works fine for them, but not for us, because the receiver is still there and it doesn't matter. Luckily for us, beginning around 1962, the best I can estimate, SIG would make small runs of commercial, civilian-only STGW57s as the PE57. On this channel, you've seen my PE90 before. Well, this is what came before. So that's good. Not so good, though. They never made very many, even in Switzerland. Under 5,000, some sources say 4,000. I've even seen some records claim under 3,000. But those were not all imported here. I've seen a few videos where they take that number and say that's what was imported into the U.S. No, no, no. In America, these came in, at least in the original 7.5 millimeter, the PE57, in very small numbers. Most you see will have the SIG Arms import mark. A few that came in around 1983, which is actually about when the 57 production line was being shut down. It was a company out in Arizona. The name escapes me at the moment. Starts with a G or an H. Yeah, let me know in the comments. SIG Arms were brought over a few more. And the guns you see from the 80s seem to have serials roughly in the 2,600 up to slightly over 4,000 range that we see in America. And I've seen some a little higher 4,000s over in Switzerland. That gives you an idea. This one here, though, has a serial under 1,500. And that's actually key to why this was importable and how I got it. After pretty much any firearm is over 50 years old, and if it was never a machine gun, it's CNR eligible. And while there are tons of restrictions on modern imports, importing CNR guns effectively, you know, the same idea as with my K31 here, they're exempt from a lot of the requirements. They don't fall under the 1989 ban. They don't really fall under 922R, whatever. I mentioned SIG started making PE57s around 1962, give or take. It's actually kind of hard to narrow down a lot of this stuff. And they stopped making them roughly around 83. I've seen 85. Hard to say, whatever. Therefore, If a rifle was made before 1975, about to be 1976 as we get out of this year, it could be imported as a curio and relic. If you go through all the paperwork and pay the fees and do all the jab and go through lawyers and da-da-da-da. Well, this one is. The serial number dates it to the 1960s. It's CNR. It was actually purchased at auction in Switzerland and took a long time for the paperwork to come through. First, had to get it officially declared CNR through some supporting documentation from the factory, then had to get import approval, and then finally, one final step that happened this August, had to get export approval from Switzerland. Delay upon delay, but I'm kind of used to it by now. Finally, it came in towards the end of September this year, and I could not wait to get it out here and shoot it. As I said, this is why I sold my Honey Creek gun. By the way, Steve is fully aware of what I did and absolutely supports my decision because he's one of the lucky bastards that did get one of the 1980s PE57s too. So it wasn't like I was doing anything behind his back. It's just, his gun was great, but this is a factory original. I should also just briefly mention the AMTs, the American Match Targets. That name was applied in the 1970s. That's the 308 version, pretty similar to the Chilean SG510-4. Bolivia also used them. Shorter barrel, the 308 caliber, wood furniture. More of those came in America. It's often said that 3,000 AMTs were made. That's probably pretty close to the truth. How many made it over here? A good chunk. I know some AMTs did stay in Switzerland and Europe and go elsewhere, but you definitely see more AMTs in America than you do P57s. Both are very rare. Just one is slightly less rarer. AMT is cool and all, but I wanted the Swiss military gun to go with my K31 and Smith Rubin, and the opportunity presented itself. It just so happens that I don't do very well with these bipods. Let's try the bipod in the rear kind of shooter's position. Beer keg. I knew it was going to do that. I don't know. I just don't do this right. I can do that right, though. While we're talking the bipod, good time to mention accessories. The P57 uses the same sling as the STGW57, this leather one, passed through on the stock. The bayonet for it was a unique pattern. The bayonet year model 1957. These were made by Wenger and Victorinox. Very nice, polished blade, double-edged. Bayonet lug. Here. Goes on very, very well. This fits just perfect on this gun. No extra play, but as you saw, it just slips right on and comes off very easily. The benefit of, frankly, quality manufacturing. But one of the most important elements of any rifle, the feeding device. And Switzerland absolutely agreed with this. In fact, they worked on the magazines for the AM55 for quite a while, and then finally went to the final pattern in 1957 right before adoption. And there are 3 or 4 pretty main variants. So let's just set this old thing aside. Look at them. These were pretty much based on the LMG 25 mags like we discussed. Those were 30 round steel, and they had a different type of feed, but really the same. These would be modified to this pattern. Now the very first mags were more of a grayish finish, but very soon, the first year or so, they went to this semi-gloss black finish. 24 rounds, as we already discussed, curved body. As I mentioned, this is an aluminum alloy, and it's one-piece extrusion. No seams, no lines. Was this expensive to produce? Absolutely. But did it make a durable, tough, yet lightweight mag? Absolutely again. And that's what they wanted. They were going to issue 5 mags per soldier. And to keep the weight down, they had to go light. In fact, these are only about half a pound unloaded. And when you do let them up all the way, they're about 2 pounds per mag. So that's 10 pounds fully loaded in ammo, in addition to a rifle over 12 pounds. But, you know, they did what they could, and these are very fine magazines. But this style here was only made for a couple of years. Here we have what is effectively a transitional mag, and this is actually the mag that came with this rifle. This seems to have been the mag made in the early, maybe mid-60s. Still an extruded body, but they changed from a metal follower with these two to a polymer one. Yeah, it saves a little weight, but really it's just to cut down on friction in the cold. They also changed the feed lips. The early couple of patterns have this bumpy corrugated pattern. They would first go to the polymer follower, then they would go to the updated feed lips here. Also, the texture changes a bit. Finish too. And then we have the late style mag here. And this seems to have been the mag they most mass produced from the mid to late 60s throughout the thing. Still have a polymer follower, the updated feed lips, and now there's a little bit of a bulge here. A little more than halfway down the body of the mag. And that was done for better grip and grasping, to strengthen it. And it did increase manufacturing time and all that, but that was the idea. They wanted to make as good of a magazine, a good feeding device as for the rifle as they could, because they had a darn good, reliable, durable, accurate gun on their hands. As a complete package, it really cuts the profile of look. At least I think so. For use as a standard infantry rifle, I think you understand why. It has a 24-inch barrel. Now that does include an integrated muzzle device, flash hider, brake. It also has grenade rings. This is not removable. You know, we'll see this done later on too. I believe the external finish is a type of nitriding. Got these standing tall sights. There is an ampule in the front sight for a night use. As I mentioned, this one does have the mount for the Kern scope. That's for use as a DMR. It actually would take a few more years to replace a lot of the bolt guns as the DMR roll would roll in, but they would do it by the 1970s. For sure. Rear sight flips up. Just a chunky rubber butt, nothing in it. We do have a fold down trigger, as I already mentioned. Yes, that is also for grenade use, if I didn't say that earlier. This is the safety. It is a bit of a two-handed affair, I won't lie. It's about as awkward as the P49's safety. But overall, even though it's heavy, it's well balanced. The carry handle's in a good place. And it packs a lot of features. And it does surprise me that they even use this to replace the submachine gun, the Swiss version of the Suomi submachine gun. Essentially, this replaced 4 guns in Swiss service. Kind of like what the M14 was meant to do in America. Now, do I think this replaced a submachine gun? Well, no, I don't. But I don't think the Swiss military, given its position as a defensive and deterrence force, really needed a lot of those. One thing else I should point out. I mentioned the front sight has a ampule for night sight. Our rear sight, well, it has this included iris. Now, because this was a civilian gun, this is not a military feature, although all guns could mount it. This also has storage compartment and the pistol grip. Use a bullet tip and slides off. Because in here we have a couple of neat little things. Keep a couple of patches at the bottom here. One, they just keep stuff from rattling around. You never know, you might need them. And then there's a couple of things in here. Let's pull them out. Honestly, it's a pretty generous cavity in there for the pistol grip. Set her aside here. Except patches, little 2-chamber oil pot. Here we have like a clip that can go on the rear sight to lock it in. And here in this little oil type bottle is the original military iris insert. So in case I do want to go back to that, I can. Always nice to be able to keep your spare parts. And then this is actually the part in there that I wanted to show you. This is a clip-on rear night sight. Has 2 ampules, of course they're dead now, to provide for the military low light night use. So you have 2 dots in the rear, 1 in the front, and you just keep it in the pistol grip. Later versions they would get a little more refined, but you know, for this day and time. I've also seen this style of oiler ampule in some guns. Right here. And that all came out of my pistol grip, so not bad. And with that, since I can't really talk to you much about the fancy sight, let's get Jero back in. Now I'll let Jero give the PE57 do.
You know, despite my reputation of, well, my relationship with Rock and Lock mags, I will say that on the Swiss guns, I find them a lot easier to manage. They're just not quite as tight and goofy. One of the things I think is really cool about this rear sight is that this adjustment on it actually acts like the aperture of a camera, in which like the diameter of the peep is actually adjustable too. So you can kind of open it up and close it down. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Yep, no hold open.
You know, I mean, it's got some punch to it, but it's supposed to.
Yeah, it's a full power cartridge.
At first, I was kind of up there tinkering with the bipod a little bit, just to kind of unfold it, and it threw me off a little bit with the way that the sling is kind of hooked into the shroud here. I was kind of trying to fold. I was trying to fold forward on it, and for a bipod position, that's actually like that's pretty far back on the gun.
Well, it adjusts.
I mean, I see that either way, like the sling mount point up front, I kind of fumbled with it a little bit, but no, I like it. You know, it's a big chunky piece of machinery, and I really do like. I don't know if like out in the field having these really big tall sights would be problematic at all when it comes to banging them on stuff. And
yeah, I mean it's where they fold, but also I think it shows why when they went to the STGW57 they thought about low profile sights. Like
right.
I could see that. And of course, it does have an optics mount. I don't know how many had an optic. Probably not that many. So the irons were the primary.
I mean, low profile they're not, but no. I do think the little like aperture adjustable rear sight is pretty cool.
Yeah, of course that's just for competition. The actual military fixed sight is in the pistol grip, but
yeah, you
know you can easily screw in and screw out, screw on, screw off.
But no, very cool, man. I like it.
At the beginning of the video, I said SIG and Switzerland, by extension, tried to make this cheaper than previous guns, even if it didn't work out. That's true. But believe it or not, you can see some ways they tried. For example, this receiver, it's actually two stamped halves that are brazed together. There's a joint there. And there are several other stamped or cast, or in the case of like the magazine and stuff, extruded parts. Also, this rubber furniture, it is obviously cheaper to produce. It's very all-weather. When firing rifle grenades, the stock is intended to flex a bit. The barrel, having the integrated flash hider and everything, that was also meant to help with grenade launching and accuracy. I'm not sure if they thought it was going to be cheaper to machine it all of one piece or not. That's kind of up there. But you really can see how, even though they wanted to do so much with it, they saved some money. And that even kind of extends to the operating system. So, alright guys, going prone for you. Bipod in kind of the rear shooter's position. Yeah, doesn't fold. It's just when you dig it in the ground, that's what's important. And you have your bolt group. Technically carrier and head. Big rollers. And their spring actually interacts right in the rear here. Meaning that for the firing pin, we've got to come from the side. That's why that hammer's on the side. It's actually right here. And this is that sweeping extractor that also doubles as an ejector. The spring is up here. And that lets us use this undersized ejection port. Let's finish off that mag with the bipod in the kind of front assault position. I don't know what you call it. It's the go fast position. And it works. Two-handed safety though. And that's it, guys. It is both very complicated in the way they decided to machine things, like the barrel, like the magazine, but also simple. Yeah, it's why I find these fascinating. It's why I find Swiss guns fascinating. It's just, how they really did things differently. And again, these would remain in active service through the 80s, and even though they were hoping to replace them earlier, they really didn't start phasing them out until the 90s when finally the next generation came along. And I know what you're thinking. Reliable as always. What's better, the STGW57, the PE57, or the STGW90, the PE90? Complete with a very similar folding little light bipod. Sights, of course, whole new caliber. Well, that seems like a fun topic for another video. Kind of a head-to-head comparison, because we did do some work on that today as well. But I just really wanted to focus on this gun in the video alone because of just how long it took to happen. It will be interesting to see how many more CNR eligible guns can come in, how many can be certified as such and make it over. Production was very small, even if we don't always know the exact numbers. They certainly never exported 4,000 to America or 3,000. It's in the hundreds at most. Should also mention that in the post-ban, post-1989 era, DS Arms did briefly offer a ban-compliant version of this gun with a neutered barrel and appropriate furniture and all that. And even those are quite rare. Triggers on these are interesting. I like them, but yeah. I do find it interesting they did not do the bolt hold back, because the K31 actually had it and the STGW90 had it, but for some reason on this one it did not. What do you think? Ever owned a PE57 or AMT? Maybe you have one of the few parts kits builds. I would have been perfectly happy to keep my Honey Creek gun. It worked great. I think he did a great job on the receiver. But, you know, when an original presents itself, from both the shooting and collecting standpoint, it's just impossible to say no. And I actually like buying used ones like this. There have been some that popped up over the years that were still as new in the foam lining in the cardboard box. That's awesome if you're just a collector, but I'm also a shooter. I would have a very hard time, probably couldn't bring myself to do it, to actually fire one of those if it's made it 40 years without being shot. But a gun like this that's been well loved and enjoyed, it matches, I'm cool with. In fact, that's the same way I got my PE90 here. It's a Swiss surplus gun, but surplus to civilian needs. Also, I discovered today that the love mark that these get really bugs J-Ro. We'll talk about that next time. But with that, guys, that is my fall story. Appreciate you hanging out, tuning in today with me and Peanut's been running around. I dropped one of those ampules of oil earlier, and she thought, ooh, neat, new toy. And while I was getting that from her, she saw the GP11 cartridge I left on the table, and she thought, ooh, neat, shiny, and rolling new toy. Yeah, you haven't lived until you've had a tripod cat playing with a Swiss bullet. Appreciate you hanging out today. As always, if you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. Check out some of my older Swiss SIG videos and the Schmidt Rubin videos and what have you. Hope everyone's having a good fall as we roll through October and get close to Halloween. But yeah, let me know what you think of this gun's looks, too, because they're understandably pretty divisive. With that, on behalf of J-Ro and Peanut, this is Misha, Catch you very soon. Next time. Let's throw things. K31.